My name is Janet Baxter. I'm 28 years old. I work in logistics for a mid-sized distribution company. It's not glamorous, but it's solid. Good pay benefits and a sense of security, the kind of job that lets you save money, plan ahead, dream about a future. That's what I wanted: stability. A foundation strong enough to build a life on. For the past 2 years, I thought I had that with Ryan. Ryan was 26, ambitious, always chasing the next big thing. He worked in marketing at a tech startup downtown. His days were filled with late meetings, brand launches, networking events. He loved the spotlight, and I admired how he seemed to thrive in it. I thought our differences balanced each other: his fire, my steadiness. We'd been living together for 8 months in a modest one-bedroom apartment, shared chores, split rent, whispered about bigger places and brighter futures. At least I thought we did. Quietly, I'd been saving for an engagement ring, nearly $8,000 tucked away. Not too flashy, but something meaningful. I had already booked a cabin in Colorado, mapped out a hiking trail ending at a scenic overlook. I pictured it perfectly. Ryan would say yes, and we'd have the kind of proposal story he could brag about for years. But as I was planning forever, he was planning something else. At first, I thought it was stress. His startup was deep in a funding round. He was exhausted, distracted, always glued to his phone. Nights stretched later and later with urgent dinners and networking events. But then came the changes, subtle at first. The smell of expensive cologne that wasn't his. The way he criticized little things: my jeans were too relaxed, my friends lacked ambition, even the restaurants I picked were trying too hard. And always the name Derek. Derek thinks we should pivot our strategy. Derek got us into this exclusive dinner. Derek says I have potential. Derek, Derek, Derek. I laughed once, trying to make it light. Sounds like you've got a work husband. Ryan didn't laugh. 3 weeks ago, I lit candles on the dinner table, cooked his favorite meal. I was desperate to pull us back to remind him of what we had. He walked in, glanced at the setup, and his face hardened. Janet, we need to talk. My chest tightened. Are we okay? No, he said flat. We're not. I don't think this is working anymore. I reached for him. Ryan, we can fix. Stop! He raised his hand sharp, cutting me off. Then came the words that shattered me. I settled for you because I thought I couldn't do better. Turns out I was wrong. It felt like the floor disappeared beneath me. How long? I whispered. 3 months. He didn't hesitate. It's not a fling. Derek is what I should have waited for. The name slammed into me like a door. I walked to the bedroom, opened my sock drawer, and pulled out the small velvet box I'd hidden for months. I placed it on the table between us. I was going to propose next month in Colorado. Guess you saved us both the embarrassment. His eyes flickered with something, guilt maybe, but he didn't apologize. Instead, he said, I'm moving in with Derek. I already found someone to take my half of the lease. And just like that, he was gone. I didn't scream, didn't cry in front of him. I gathered some clothes, stuffed them into a bag, and left. The night air outside stung my skin, but the silence inside me was worse. As I sat in my car, gripping the steering wheel, I realized the man I thought I'd marry had been gone long before tonight. But something else lingered, sharp and quiet, deep in my chest. This wasn't just an ending. It was the beginning of a story Ryan would never see coming. I don't remember much of the drive to Nina's that night. My body moved on autopilot while my mind screamed in circles. I replayed Ryan's words, his calmness, his certainty, the casual cruelty of saying he had settled for me. When I walked through Nina's door with a duffel bag slung over my shoulder, she didn't need an explanation. One look at my face, and she pulled me into her arms. Janet, what happened? The words tumbled out of me. Ryan, Derek, the breakup, the velvet box on the table. I felt like I was narrating someone else's tragedy. My voice sounded hollow, like it belonged to a stranger. Nina held me tighter. That man's an idiot. One day he'll regret this. But don't you waste your regret on him. Her certainty was a small comfort, like a warm blanket that couldn't quite stop the cold. That night I lay awake on her couch, staring at the ceiling. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Ryan's expression, detached, almost bored, as though ending us was no more significant than canceling a subscription. I clenched my fists against the ache. I had loved him with my whole heart, and all along he had been drafting his exit strategy. The next morning I made the call I'd been dreading. Hi, yes, I need to return an engagement ring. It's unused. The jeweler's voice was polite, but I imagined judgment hiding between the syllables. Of course, ma'am. We can process that refund for you. Unused. The word burned. With the refund, I paid off my car loan. Practical, necessary, but it felt like taking money that was meant to symbolize love and repurposing it into something cold and functional. When I hung up, I stared at my phone for a long time. I could call Ryan. I could scream, demand answers, ask him if Derek was worth what he threw away. But what would be the point? Instead, I blocked his number, deleted him from social media, not out of revenge, not even really out of anger, just to breathe, to exist without constant reminders of what I'd lost. But still, his shadow lingered. At work, people noticed. "You seem quieter," my coworker Jamie said one afternoon, her voice tentative. "Just tired," I lied. But it wasn't just fatigue. It was grief gnawing and relentless. Everywhere I turned, there were reminders. The coffee shop where Ryan and I used to sit on Sundays. The grocery aisle where we'd argue about cereal brands. Even the silence of my own phone, which once buzzed constantly with his messages, now mocking me with its stillness. And yet beneath the grief, something else began to stir. A thin thread of anger weaving itself tighter each day. Not the explosive kind, but a steady burn that refused to die out. Nina saw it too. One evening, as we sat with mugs of tea, she studied me carefully. "You're holding yourself together better than I expected," she said. "I don't feel like it," I admitted. "Inside, it's like glass shards scraping every time I breathe." "That's normal. But Janet, listen to me. You're stronger than he ever gave you credit for. Don't you dare let him define you." Her words lodged in me like seeds. I didn't believe them yet, but some part of me wanted to. Days turned into weeks. The fog of heartbreak didn't vanish, but it shifted, making room for other things. I threw myself into work, volunteered for projects no one else wanted, spent hours untangling logistical nightmares until my brain was too tired to think about Ryan. It wasn't glamorous, but it was something I could control. My boss noticed. "Janet, you've been knocking it out of the park lately," he said in a meeting. "Keep this up, and we'll have to start talking about bigger responsibilities." I nodded, but inside a tiny flicker of pride sparked. For so long, my energy had gone into keeping Ryan happy. Now that energy belonged to me. Still, the nights were the hardest. Alone in Nina's guest room, I sometimes scrolled through old photos, us smiling at a concert, Ryan's arm around me, on a beach, the two of us decorating a Christmas tree. Each image felt like a lie, frozen in time. One night, against my better judgment, I typed his name into the search bar. His profile was private, but Derek's wasn't. There, they were smiling at some rooftop bar, Ryan's hand casually resting on Derek's shoulder. My stomach twisted equal parts nausea and rage. I shut the laptop with a snap. No, I wasn't going to do this. I had already given Ryan too much of my time, my love, my life. He had chosen Derek. Fine. But I wasn't going to keep choosing him in his absence. The weeks stretched on, and slowly the rawness dulled. I started running with Nina's boyfriends group. At first, I could barely keep up, lungs burning, legs heavy. But there was something addictive about the rhythm, the Four Baxter motion. Step after step, breath after breath. It felt like proof that I was still alive, still moving. I rediscovered books I'd abandoned, filled journals with half-finished thoughts, even took weekend drives to small towns just to see what was there. Little by little, I stitched myself back together. And yet late at night, when the house was quiet, I'd still hear his voice. "I settled for you. I was wrong." The words echoed like a haunting refrain. But gradually, the echo lost some of its power. One evening, Nina caught me staring out the window, lost in thought. "You're thinking about him again," she said gently. I nodded. I can't stop replaying it, wondering if I missed the signs earlier, if I could have done something different. Nina shook her head. "Janet, stop torturing yourself. The only person who could have changed anything was Ryan. He made his choice. Now it's time for you to make yours." Her words hit me harder than I expected. Because she was right. I couldn't rewrite the past, but maybe I could decide what came next. The next morning, as I walked into work, something shifted. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was preparing. Preparing for a life without him. Preparing for a version of myself he had never seen, never believed in. I thought Ryan was out of my life for good. I was wrong. They say time heals. That's not true. Time doesn't heal anything. It only gives you space to decide what to do with the wound. For me, the wound was Ryan. But instead of bleeding out forever, I decided to stitch it closed in my own way. Work became my anchor. I volunteered for every tough project, every late-night assignment. Logistics isn't glamorous. It's spreadsheets, schedules, and solving endless puzzles about moving goods from point A to B. But with Ryan out of my head, I realized I was actually good at it. Really good. Problems that used to terrify me, trucks delayed warehouses, short-staffed suppliers arguing, now felt like challenges I could conquer. My boss started giving me projects no one else wanted, and I nailed them. Slowly, a new identity formed, not Janet Ryan's girlfriend, just Janet. Competent, resilient, valuable. Outside of work, I started saying yes to things I used to avoid. Nina dragged me to her boyfriend's group workouts. The first morning, I nearly collapsed after 10 minutes gasping for breath while sweat stung my eyes. You can quit any time, Nina teased, half smiling. No, I said between gulps of air. I'm not quitting. Step by step, rep by rep, I built strength. I didn't know I had. There was something cathartic about pushing my body until it hurt, until the ache drowned out the echo of Ryan's voice. And somewhere between the treadmill and the weights, I noticed something shift. I wasn't exercising for revenge. I wasn't imagining running into Ryan looking glamorous and strong. I was just doing it for me. That realization hit harder than any workout. Weekends became mine again. I visited museums I'd long wanted to see, wandered through art exhibits Ryan would have called pretentious, took spontaneous drives through small towns, sipping coffee in diners, with peeling wallpaper, talking to strangers about nothing and everything. Each trip was like reclaiming a piece of myself I hadn't even realized I'd given up. At first, it felt strange being alone making choices without considering someone else's opinion. But then I noticed how freeing it was. I didn't need to filter myself through Ryan's ambition anymore. I didn't need his approval to feel worthwhile. And slowly, painfully, I began to like the silence. 3 months after the breakup, my boss called me into his office. Janet, you've been doing exceptional work, he said, leaning back in his chair. How would you feel about stepping into an operations manager role? Better pay, more responsibility. My heart raced. Me, a manager. A year ago, I wouldn't have believed I was capable. I would have called Ryan immediately, eager to share the good news, desperate for his validation. But Ryan was gone, and I didn't need his validation anymore. I smiled. I'd feel ready. That night, instead of crying over what I'd lost, I took myself out to dinner. A quiet celebration, just me, a glass of wine, and the knowledge that I was building a future on my own terms. Around that time, Nina convinced me to join her and her boyfriend at a birthday party for a mutual friend. I almost didn't go. I still hated small talk, still dreaded the awk Baxter question. So are you seeing anyone? But that's the night I met Adam. Adam wasn't flashy. He wasn't the kind of man who dominated a room with his ambition. Instead, he carried a calmness that felt rare. He was a pediatric nurse, soft-spoken with warm eyes, and an easy laugh that made the people around him relax. We ended up talking for hours in a corner away from the chaos of the party. So what do you do? He asked, genuinely curious. I work in logistics. Basically, I make sure shipments get where they're supposed to be on time. His eyes lit up. That sounds really important. I bet people don't realize how much planning goes into just making life run smoothly. I almost laughed. After years of Ryan treating my job like a joke, here was someone who actually saw value in it. We talked about books, about places we wanted to travel, about his volunteer work on weekends. There was no pressure to impress, no subtle criticism hidden in his compliments. Just conversation. When I left that night, I caught myself smiling on the drive home. A real smile, not the forced one I'd been wearing for months. But with that smile came fear. Could I trust again? Could I open my heart without the constant dread of betrayal? Ryan had left scars I couldn't ignore. Late at night, doubts crept in. What if Adam turns out like him? What if I'm fooled again? Nina noticed. You're scared, she said one evening as we folded laundry together. Of course I'm scared, I admitted. I thought I knew Ryan. I thought I knew us. And look how that turned out. Nina placed a hand on my arm. Scars don't mean you can't love again. They just mean you'll love smarter this time. Adam's not Ryan. And you're not the same Janet anymore either. Her words lingered. She was right. I wasn't the same woman who once bent over Baxter to earn Ryan's approval. But was I ready to prove it? Adam didn't push. He texted me, casually asked if I wanted to grab coffee, invited me on a hike. His patience was disarming. One morning as we stood overlooking a quiet lake, he said something that stuck with me. You don't have to be anything other than who you are. That's enough. It was such a simple sentence, but it felt revolutionary. I thought about Ryan, how he had made me feel small, unworthy, like I had to constantly prove my value. Adam, in contrast, saw me as enough exactly as I was. And for the first time in a long while, I let myself believe that maybe I was. By the end of that summer, my life looked different. I had a new title at work, a stronger body, a clearer sense of who I was, and maybe, just maybe, the beginnings of something real with Adam. But happiness is fragile, and sometimes the past doesn't let go so easily. Because just when I thought I'd closed the chapter on Ryan, he came back. It started small. A text from an unknown number one Wednesday morning. Ryan, hey, how are you doing? I stared at the screen for a long time, thumb hovering over the reply button. A few months ago, I would have dropped everything. My heart would have raced desperate to read between the lines. But now all I felt was annoyance, like a mosquito buzzing around my ear. I blocked the number without responding. For a few blissful weeks, I believed that was the end of it. But Ryan didn't give up so easily. The next message came through email. I hope you're doing well. I just wanted to check in. Check in. As if he was some distant relative, not the man who had gutted me with 8 words. I settled for you. I was wrong. Delete, block, move on. I thought it was over. Until one afternoon, my desk phone rang. Janet Baxter Logistics. A pause, then a voice I hadn't heard in months. Janet, it's me. Please don't hang up. My grip on the receiver tightened. Ryan, I'm at work. I know, and I'm sorry to call you here, but I need to say this. I made a huge mistake. Derek. He wasn't what I thought. The company's falling apart. He's broke, and he's been seeing other people. I should never have left you. Can we talk? I almost laughed at the irony. The man who once looked down on my steady job, my simple weekends, was now scrambling as his shiny world collapsed. I took a steady breath. Ryan, I'm seeing someone now. I hope you figure things out. But this conversation is over. And I hung up. My hands trembled, but not from longing, from release. That night I told Adam. His brow furrowed. Are you okay? Yes, I said honestly, surprisingly okay. He studied me for a moment, then nodded. Good. But Janet, people like Ryan, they don't always stop when you ask them to. I wanted to argue, but deep down I knew Adam was right. A month later, I left work late, the parking lot nearly empty. As I approached my car, I saw a figure leaning against it. Ryan. For a moment, I didn't recognize him. The polished, confident man I once loved was gone. His suit looked wrinkled, his hair unkempt, and there was a desperation in his eyes that chilled me. I just need 5 minutes, he pleaded. Please. I crossed my arms. 5 minutes to say what? That you regret leaving, that Derek wasn't your dream man after all. Congratulations, Ryan, you've discovered karma. He winced. I know I deserve that, but I swear, Janet, I see it now. You were everything. You were steady, loyal, real. I was stupid chasing something shallow. Please give me another chance. For a moment, I just looked at him, waiting for the old ache to rise the pull of what we once had. But there was nothing. I used to dream about you saying those words, I admitted. But now they mean nothing. I'm not that woman anymore. His face crumpled. Don't say that. It's the truth. I stepped past him, unlocked my car, and slid inside. He called my name, but I drove away without looking back. When I told Nina what happened, her jaw tightened. That's what I was afraid of, she said. Men like him don't like losing. He's going to keep pushing, Janet. You need to be careful. Careful, I scoffed. He's pathetic. He has nothing left to offer me. Nina gave me a sharp look. Don't underestimate a man with nothing left. Desperation makes people reckless. Her warning lodged in my chest. That night, lying awake beside Adam, I whispered, what if he doesn't stop? Adam shifted closer, wrapping an arm around me. Then we deal with it together. You're not alone in this anymore. His steady heartbeat against my back grounded me. Still unease curled in my stomach. The weeks passed, and I tried to focus on moving for Baxter. Adam and I grew closer, our relationship deepening in ways that felt natural, unforced. He made me laugh on grocery runs, left notes in my lunch, asked about my day, and actually listened. Small gestures, but they built something real, something Ryan could never have given me. One evening, as Adam cooked dinner in my kitchen, I caught myself watching him, hair slightly messy, humming off key, focused on stirring the sauce. And I realized this was happiness. Not flashy, not Instagram-worthy, just quiet, genuine happiness. I smiled to myself. Ryan's shadow was finally fading. Or so I thought. 2 weeks later, Nina pulled me aside after yoga class. Her face was pale. You're not going to like this, she said. But Ryan showed up at the cafe where I was working. He asked about you. Said he just wanted to know if you were happy. My stomach dropped. And what did you say? I told him, yes, you're happy. Happier than ever. And that he needed to leave you alone. I wanted to believe that would be enough. But as I walked to my car that evening, I couldn't shake the feeling of eyes on me lingering just out of sight. One night, Adam found me pacing the living room, arms folded tight. What's wrong? He asked. Ryan, I admitted. He keeps circling. Texts, calls, waiting outside. Now he's bothering Nina. It's like he can't accept that it's over. Adam placed his hands on my shoulders. Then you need to tell him clearly. Not just no, not just silence, but the truth. The final truth. I looked into Adam's eyes, steady and unwavering, and realized he was right. I'd been avoiding it, hoping Ryan would disappear on his own. But some endings require more than silence. They require confrontation. The opportunity came sooner than I expected. At the next company event, as I laughed with colleagues and Adam by my side, I felt it a shift in the air. I turned, and there he was. Ryan, standing near the entrance, eyes locked on me, as though the rest of the room didn't exist. My pulse quickened, but this time it wasn't fear. It was anticipation. The past had resurfaced, clawing its way back into my present. But I wasn't the same woman he had left behind. And if Ryan wanted his 5 minutes, this time I was ready. The night Ryan showed up at my company's networking event, I felt the air in the room shift the moment his eyes met mine. He looked thinner, older somehow. The confidence that used to drip off him in waves was gone, replaced by something rawer, desperation. "Janet," he said, approaching cautiously, like I might vanish if he stepped too quickly. "Please, just hear me out." Adam stiffened beside me. I touched his arm. "It's fine. I'll handle this." I turned to Ryan. 5 minutes. That's all you get. We stepped out onto the balcony, the city lights glowing like distant stars below us. The glass door shut, muting the hum of conversation inside. Ryan rubbed a hand over his face. I was such an idiot. I chased someone who didn't care about me, not really. Derek, he used me. The company's gone. The investors pulled out. He's already with someone else. He looked at me, eyes wet. "You were the one, Janet. You always were. Loyal, steady, kind. I threw it away because I was shallow and blind. Please, give me another chance." For a moment, I studied him. This was everything I used to fantasize about, that he'd wake up, regret it, beg to come back. I thought hearing it would heal me. But instead, I felt nothing. No rush of relief, no flicker of hope, just emptiness. "Ryan," I said softly, "do you know how many nights I wished you would say those words? I cried myself to sleep, begging the universe to make you see me again. And now that you're here saying it..." I shook my head. "I don't care anymore." His face crumpled. "Don't say that. It's the truth. I loved you once. I would have given you everything. But the woman who loved you doesn't exist anymore." He reached for my hand. I pulled back instantly. "Janet, I know I don't deserve forgiveness, but I swear I can be different." Different. My laugh was sharp, bitter. "You didn't just break my heart, Ryan. You made me doubt myself. You made me believe I wasn't enough, that I had to earn love by shrinking who I was. And now you want me to believe you've changed." His mouth opened, but no words came. "I don't hate you," I added, "but I don't want you. That's my closure." I turned and walked back inside without looking at his face. Adam was waiting, worry etched across his features. "You okay?" I exhaled a long, shaky breath. "Yes, more than okay. I finally feel free." Adam smiled faintly, slipping his hand into mine. "Good. Because he's not worth even a fraction of you." I squeezed his hand. I know that now. For weeks after Ryan tried again, a text congratulating me on my promotion, a voicemail asking if we could meet just as friends, a LinkedIn message about some job lead. But each time I blocked, deleted, moved on. It wasn't anger anymore, it was clarity. Ryan had been the storm that wrecked me, but Adam was the calm that showed me I could rebuild. Adam and I grew closer. We weren't rushing into anything, but everything felt different with him. Real, steady, the kind of relationship where laughter came easily, where silence wasn't uncomfortable, where support was given freely without scorekeeping. One evening, we were cooking together in my kitchen, me chopping vegetables, him stirring sauce, when he paused, glancing at me. "Does it bother you that Ryan keeps trying to contact you?" I considered the question. Not really. More like confusion. He once told me he settled for me, and now he's begging for another chance. It's ironic, but it doesn't hurt anymore. It just makes me wonder why he'd want to settle again. Adam stirred the sauce thoughtfully. Maybe he finally realized that settling for a good person isn't settling at all. I smiled faintly. Maybe. But the truth is, I'm not that woman anymore. The one who needed his approval. I've outgrown her. And him. Adam leaned down and kissed my forehead. Good. Because I happen to like the Janet you are now. For the first time in months, I believed him. A few months later, Adam surprised me with a quiet dinner on the beach. No flash, no staged photos, no spectacle. Just us, the ocean, and a ring he had chosen because it reminded him of me, not because it would impress anyone else. "Janet Baxter," he said, kneeling in the sand. "Will you marry me?" Tears pricked my eyes. "Yes," I whispered. It wasn't the proposal I once envisioned in the Colorado mountains. It was better. Because it was real. When we planned our engagement party, I kept the guest list small, close friends, family, Nina, of course. I wanted warmth, not spectacle. The night of the party, as Adam and I laughed with loved ones in the glow of string lights, I felt a peace I hadn't known in years. Until I saw her. A figure at the entrance, dressed in black, scanning the room like she was searching for something she had lost. Ryan. Uninvited. My chest tightened. I'd told myself he was finished, that I'd made my closure clear. But here he was, at my engagement party, dragging the past into my future. Adam followed my gaze and immediately stiffened. Do you want me to handle this? I shook my head slowly. No, this time, I'll end it myself. I excused myself from the group, walking across the room with steady steps. Ryan's eyes locked onto mine, filled with something I couldn't quite name. Longing, regret, maybe desperation. Janet, he whispered. I had to see it for myself. You're really doing this. Yes, I said firmly. I am, and you need to leave. He looked past me to Baxter Adam. She seems nice. Very different from me. She is, I said simply. Ryan's voice cracked. Do you ever think about what we could have been if I hadn't screwed it up? I paused, staring at him, really staring, and I realized there was no love left, no hate, not even anger, just emptiness. No, Ryan, I said finally. I don't think about what we could have been. I know what we were, and that's enough to never go back. Behind me, I heard the clink of glasses, Adam's laugh, Nina's voice calling my name. My life, my future. Ryan's shoulders sagged. He looked smaller than I'd ever seen him. For a moment, I almost pitied him. Almost. But then I turned my back, because some doors aren't meant to stay open. The clinking of glasses, bursts of laughter, the warm glow of string lights. Our engagement party felt like a dream. My parents were chatting happily with Adam's family. Nina was making jokes at the center of a small crowd, and Adam was standing beside me, hand resting lightly on my back. Everything felt right. Everything felt safe. Until I saw Ryan. He lingered at the entrance, dressed in a black suit that probably cost more than he could afford now. His eyes scanned the room, restless as though searching for something he'd lost long ago. My stomach tightened. He had no right to be here. Adam noticed my expression, followed my gaze, and stiffened. Do you want me to handle this? He asked quietly. I shook my head. No, this is mine to finish. I crossed the room slowly, each step steady, deliberate. When Ryan saw me, his lips curved into a sad smile. I had to see it for myself, he said softly. You're really doing this. Yes, I replied firmly. I am. And you need to leave. He ignored the command, his gaze flicking to Baxter Adam across the room. She seems nice. Very different from me. She is, I said simply. Something flickered across his face. Envy, maybe, or resignation. Do you ever think about what we could have been, if I hadn't screwed it up? I studied him. For months I had imagined this moment, wondered how I would feel. Anger, vindication, regret. But as I looked at him, I felt nothing. No fire, no ache, not even hatred. Just a dull emptiness where love used to live. No, Ryan, I said finally. I don't think about what we could have been. I know what we were, and that's enough to never go back. At that moment, Adam returned, carrying 2 glasses of wine. He stopped beside me, his presence calm and grounding. You must be Ryan, Adam said gently. His tone wasn't mocking, just steady. I've heard about you. Ryan swallowed, clearly thrown by Adam's composure. And you must be the one who gets the better version of her. Adam glanced at me, then back at him. No, I just get the real version of her, the one who doesn't need to shrink herself to be loved. His words landed like a final nail in a coffin. Ryan's mouth opened, but no reply came. He lowered his gaze, shoulders sagging. For the first time, he looked defeated. Emma, no, not Emma. Me, Janet. I caught myself correcting the thought. I was no longer the woman Ryan defined. I slipped my hand into Adam's and turned to Baxter Ryan one last time. You were right about one thing I said. You were settling. But so was I. The difference is, I learned from it. You didn't. Ryan blinked, as though the words pierced deeper than anything else I could have said. For a long moment, silence stretched between us. The hum of the party swelled behind me, our friends laughing, glasses toasting Nina's voice, bright and clear. My world, my future. And Ryan, he was just outside of it. To my surprise, Adam extended one of the glasses of wine to Baxter Ryan. Congratulations, he said calmly, on realizing what you lost. That kind of clarity doesn't come cheap. Ryan hesitated, then shook his head. No, I don't deserve that. You're right, Adam replied evenly, but Janet deserves peace, so give her that and leave. Ryan's eyes met mine. I held his gaze steady and unflinching. After a long pause, he nodded once. "Take care, Janet," he murmured, and then he turned and walked away. I didn't watch him go. When the door closed behind him, Adam squeezed my hand. "Was that hard for you?" he asked quietly. I thought about it. Really thought. "Not really," I said at last. I barely recognized him. And it was true. The Ryan I once loved, the one who had charmed me, held me, promised me forever, no longer existed. He had vanished long before tonight. The man who stood at my party was a stranger who once had the power to break me, but no longer could. I turned back to the celebration, to my family, my friends, my future husband. The music swelled, glasses clinked, and Nina raised her voice for a toast. To Janet and Adam she called. May their future be brighter than any of us can imagine. The room erupted in cheers. Adam slipped his arm around my waist, pulling me close. As I looked out at the faces of the people who mattered, I felt something powerful settle in my chest. Closure. Real, unshakable closure. Ryan's chapter in my life had ended not with a fight, not with tears, but with a quiet certainty. And as the night stretched on, filled with laughter and warmth, I realized something else. The best revenge isn't anger. It isn't proving him wrong. It's being genuinely, irrevocably happy. And I was. Later that night, as Adam and I drove home, I rested my head against his shoulder. "Do you think he'll try again?" I asked softly. Adam's hand tightened around mine. "Maybe. But it won't matter, because you're not the same Janet who once waited for his approval." I smiled faintly, staring out at the dark road ahead. "No, I'm not. And I'll never be her again." The headlights cut through the night, illuminating the path for Baxter. Behind us, the door had closed on everything I used to think I wanted. Ahead of us, the future waited. And for the first time in years, I was ready to run to Baxter it. The morning after our engagement party, sunlight spilled through the curtains, painting the walls in soft gold. I lay in bed listening to Adam's steady breathing beside me and thought about how different this felt from the mornings I used to have with Ryan. With Ryan, mornings were rushed, him glued to his phone, already chasing the next deal, the next connection, barely noticing if I'd made coffee. I used to think that was normal, that love was about fitting yourself into the empty spaces of someone else's schedule. But with Adam, mornings weren't rushed. They were slow, warm, filled with quiet rituals. Coffee shared, hands brushing in the kitchen, laughter about nothing in particular. And that was when it hit me. Happiness isn't supposed to feel like begging for scraps. It's supposed to feel like breathing. Over the weeks that followed, life fell into a rhythm I hadn't known I needed. We toured venues for the wedding, not ballrooms or grand hotels, but gardens and cozy barns. I didn't care about impressing anyone anymore. I just wanted a day that felt like us. Nina helped me choose a dress. As she zipped me into a simple ivory gown, she smiled through tears. "You look radiant," she whispered. I turned to the mirror. For a heartbeat, I didn't recognize the woman staring back. Not because of the dress, but because of the confidence in her posture, the quiet strength in her eyes. This was Janet Baxter, 28. Not the woman Ryan had called safe. Not the girl who once believed she had to shrink herself to deserve love. This was me, whole and unafraid. But healing isn't a straight line. Some nights, shadows crept back. I'd catch myself replaying the breakup, hearing Ryan's voice, "I settled for you. I was wrong." And I would feel a flicker of old pain, like a scar aching in the cold. One evening, as Adam and I sat on the porch, watching the sun dip behind the trees, I admitted, "Sometimes I still hear him. In my head, I hate that he left scars." Adam turned to me, his expression gentle. "Scars don't mean you're broken, Janet. They mean you healed." He reached for my hand. "And you don't have to erase the past to move for Baxter. You just have to decide it doesn't control you anymore." His words settled over me like a balm. I squeezed his hand back, letting the truth sink in. A few weeks later, I ran into Ryan one final time. It was at a grocery store of all places. He stood in the canned goods aisle, hair disheveled, cart, half empty. When he saw me, his eyes widened, then softened with something like longing. "Janet," he breathed, "you look different." "I am different," I said calmly. He hesitated, then asked, "Are you happy?" For a moment, I considered lying, but then I realized I didn't need to. "Yes," I said, "I am." He nodded slowly, gaze dropping. "Good. I hope you stay that way." And just like that, he turned and walked away. No pleading, no speeches, just silence. It was the first time I'd seen him accept the truth, and in that silence, I felt something shift. The past had finally let go of me. On our wedding day, as I walked down the aisle to Baxter, Adam, I caught Nina's eye. She smiled, her expression, saying everything words couldn't. "You made it. You chose better. You chose yourself." Adam's eyes met mine steady and warm, and for the first time in my life, I felt entirely certain. Not about perfection, not about guarantees, but about love, the kind that doesn't demand you prove your worth, the kind that grows instead of shrinks you. When I said I do, I wasn't just promising Adam forever. I was promising myself something too. Never again would I settle for less than I deserved. Later that night, as the celebration wound down, I slipped outside for a moment of quiet. The air was cool, filled with the faint hum of cicadas. I closed my eyes, listening to the laughter spilling from the reception hall behind me. For so long, I thought closure would come from Ryan, his apology, his regret, his acknowledgement of what he lost. But closure had never been about him. It had always been about me, about choosing to stop looking back. And as I stood there in the night air, I finally understood. The door had closed on everything I used to think I wanted, and I had never been happier to walk away. Inside, Adam called my name. I turned, heart swelling, and walked back to Baxter, the light, to Baxter, the people who loved me, to Baxter, the life I was building. Behind me, the shadows of the past faded. Ahead